In life, things don't always go the way we want them to. The heroine's life is a mess. Everything is going downhill at the speed of light. The girl just wanted a quiet and long life. She turned to the man who was lying unconscious. Asked him if he was okay. Was it greed to want to be an ordinary statistic? But she realized it was all over because it was a disaster. She knocked out the Duke of Rak. For this is the Grey Cardinal himself, and the true villain. He's a villain in the future. Attacked the Imperial family, put in the head of the monsters. So the girl didn't know if she could say she had just raised a black flag. She realized she just had to get out, so no one would catch her. Suddenly 2 children came in. The first one was a girl who spoke. It was your sister of the Northern Cardinal, who asked her brother if he was. She was stopped by her own little brother. The 2 kids looked at the head heroine and asked what she was doing here. Did she kill their brother? The protagonist tried to explain that it was a misunderstanding, but the children did not want to listen to her because they thought she had killed their brother. The girl remembered where it all began, the moment she realized that her life had gone downhill straight into a cliff. About an hour and a half ago, she was asked if she was ready. Maya didn't know what she was doing here, because the last thing on her mind was falling down the stairs, and she realized she was dead. But for some reason there were people around looking at her. They noticed at once that Maya had a pale complexion. The only thing I could remember was this Shakira flower. It's a novel she read before she died. She's probably a minor character in the novel, but she was wondering what she was going to do here now. Then the priest reminded the girl that she was going to go to the hall to give the blessing. After all, today was the day Mrs. Maya awakened her powers. The protagonist tried to remember everything in detail. The Emperor received a blessing the day Maya awakened her abilities, and in about a year, Maya sacrifices herself when she transfers her abilities to the Emperor to save him. Then falls into eternal slumber. Though it wasn't clear how the abilities she had awakened, I'm sure she'll be vomiting blood in a year, and she's really just a stepping stone for the Emperor's head hero. Besides, she'll be dead in a year of the new one. Then Maya decided to do it her way. She decided to admit to other people that she hadn't awakened any powers. No one around her could believe it was true. Then a woman came over to see if it was true. The protagonist did not fully understand what was going on here. After checking with the woman, she confirmed that Maya had indeed awakened. Therefore, she can walk down the aisle now, as a daughter of God, and one must always remember elegance and nobility. Now Maya didn't know what to do, whether she even needed to be blessed by the Emperor. She didn't know if she'd get sick or die afterwards, but she decided to start. She asked everyone else to pray to their God. In her head, Maya realized that she was already dead, and now she was clearly not going to die so unfairly. To escape is to escape from the temple. It was a perfect moment, for everyone was praying with their eyes closed. Fortunately, the door was open and there was no one behind it. It was also the moment a girl without reason ran. Everyone outside saw it and was shocked. She said a final goodbye to everyone. After all, she's not going to follow the original story, and will go in search of her happiness. Secondary character and goat scapegoat romance novel Shakira Flower made his first escape to survive. One bird flew to the girl and asked if the girl could hear her. At first, Maya didn't realize what the voice was, but when she turned around, she saw it was a bird talking to her. The bird was well aware that if mind flees now that it has awakened its powers, it puts the mistress of this body in an awkward position, so there is a fuss to get back to the temple. And it was a deity, the deity they'd just prayed to. Now when a girl tries out her powers, she can hear a god, and it seems that in her years of sleep, she's hit puberty. The further Maya ran, the harder it got, but she didn't know how far she had to run, but that's how she knew she couldn't give up. At one point, Maya stopped behind a tree to rest. God decided to ask her directly if she thought running away from the temple would change anything. He personally didn't know what made her change her mind while he was asleep. Maya replied that it was a better option than dying in a year. After hearing this, I was very surprised. A girl that even God doesn't realize they're in an affair, and that she's not the real Maya. But she chose to hide that fact, and she explained to God that she was good at seeing the future in her dreams. God explained to the girl that she must have pulled some kind of fortune trick, but he'd fix it. She wouldn't die, she'd just go to sleep forever. When Maya asked what the difference was, God replied that her body would fall asleep and her soul would go to him for eternity. But for the girl, it was the same as death. God asked her if she could wake up later. Would she go back to the temple, to which the girl asked only when she would return. God suggested 100 years. Did he feel sorry for the girl? But he loved his children under his blessing. Well, God loved the Emperor most of all, for he is no longer interested in a child with some and all abilities. He probably can't even sleep now. Poor thing. And it's all because the human body has entered God's realm. It's a self-release process. He knows that the more he expends his energy, the more likely he is to be unable to sleep. Maya suggested someone else, someone who could touch the Emperor and make him fall into eternal slumber. She is, for example, the protagonist of Raina's novel. Well, God definitely wanted mine, but she wasn't willing to sacrifice herself for anyone. Then God offered to warn the Emperor not to use his power, but even Maya didn't want to do that. As long as the Grey Cardinals exist, the Emperor has no choice but to use his powers. He even kidnaps the protagonist, locks her up, terrorizes her to get his hands on her. Because he's the Emperor, they have no choice but to use their powers to protect her. That's why Maya never wanted to sacrifice herself to anyone. God further asked Maya to return to the hall, after which she got tired of listening to his rebukes. She started to pick up after him, but unfortunately the girl was very slow, so she could not give the bird. Suddenly, the bird disappeared from the girl's sight, and coming to one of the bushes, she grabbed the man's head. She immediately noticed that this guy had nice and soft hair. A god flew in, who warned her that she'd caught someone interesting. If anyone saw it, they'd think she was a pervert obsessed with other people's hair. After saying that, she immediately threw the man back, after which he lost consciousness. The girl touched the man to his nose and assured him that he was breathing, which meant he was still alive. She was worried that he might have a concussion and lose his ability to do anything. His brother and sister showed up, who were surprised to see their older brother lying unconscious. The children heard from the beginning that the priestess of the temple was evil, so they're not surprised that the girl did this to their brother. Maya explained to the children that there seemed to be a misunderstanding, but they wouldn't listen. Aisha wanted to kill Maya, but her brother stopped her, because Maya had promised that she could save the man who now lay at her feet. The children remembered that their older brother had said that only an adult could save a person, so they trusted Maya. Aisha remembered that their older brother had rescued their pet, but after he came back to life, he became strange. Maya was well aware that he had become strange because the Grey Cardinal had saved him with black magic. The little girl ordered to save her brother, or the priestess will die now. Then Maya suggested we move to another location. She was well aware that it would take some time for the Grey Cardinal to wake up, and two, how the boys managed to get the Grey Cardinal. After that, May suggested we take a break for a while. Aisha decided it was really good to get some rest. Then her younger brother ordered her not to give in to the words of the evil priestess. As they rested, Maya even noticed that her body was much stronger than the suitcase thought, and she was distracted by Aisha, who asked her to save their brother. But her little brother asked her to stand. Vedi needs to hurry up, Maya. The priestess explained that this would be really hard to do. Maybe they should take another break, and she realized that everything would be fine if we could get the younger brother to do it. He controls Aisha, so we need to stay close to him. Still, mine are ready to be revived by the boys, but I explained that she'd need the kids' help, and they weren't just there to help with the big brother. Delcane told me that the house they're in now is his. For now, they're using it to look for shakara flowers. The flower is named after the woman who discovered it. It is widely known for its excellent calming effects. It is mainly used by the Emperor, whose condition is unstable and of divine power. But the protagonist didn't understand why the Grey Cardinal wanted this flower. Maya asked Delcane to pour some water and bring a towel. Aisha wanted to do something to help too, but Maya explained that there was nothing to ask her for right now. She didn't ask her for anything because she was afraid she would send her away. Aisha wonders why the priestess is showing eagerness to save her brother. Maya knew that the Grey Cardinal might try to kill her when he woke up. She needed to find a weapon for self-defense, so I asked the little girl if there was a frying pan at home. Maya explained this request by saying that in reality, adults need to do a gola to save a life. Each person has different tools for the ritual, so it's her tool. Maya also told her that it was all a secret to take with her to the grave, but she only told Aisha about it. The girl hoped the little girl would buy it. When both children left, the girl was the last one left in the room with the man. Looking at the Grey Cardinal, she hoped she wouldn't have to use the frying pan. But if the Grey Cardinal faints again after she's killed him, when he wakes up, he may try to kill her again. The twins were already asleep, and the Grey Cardinal couldn't wake up, so Maya decided to open the window, so that she could escape in case if the Grey Cardinal tried to kill her. She would hit him with a frying pan and run away. Suddenly a god appeared, who frightened Maya. He asked her to drop her weapon immediately. The god thought the girl was going to kill a living person, but she explained that she wasn't, and asked him to keep quiet. Then the god reminded the girl that only she could hear him. Then the Maya decided to attack the bird. Then suddenly she stopped, and God warned her again that she was going to kill a living man with the frying pan, and he could feel it himself. Then she explained that she wasn't going to kill him just to survive. Then God explained that if she was going to actually use the frying pan for defense, he would definitely die. She was sure it couldn't be so. After all, the Grey Cardinal wouldn't die from a regular frying pan. God didn't know why she was so obsessed with life, but she needed to stop now. Everyone had their own destiny. At one point, Maya noticed that the more God tells her, the more she began to dislike his words, for he wanted her to live out her destiny, and also for her to return to the temple. Well, she didn't want to die a year later anyway. If it's her destiny, she's willing to change it. After Maya sighed the pan several times and failed to hit the bird, God apologized and admitted defeat. He understood everything, so he asked to take the pan back. God hangs himself that he'll take responsibility and she won't die. He swears on the name of this body. Maya didn't know if God's oath would be enough, and why he was talking to her like that. She seemed to realize that he cared a lot for the Northern Cardinal. God told me that the Northern Cardinal was irreplaceable. Maya didn't know if the Northern Cardinal was a villain, or God really didn't know that's all it was. It's possible that only with a villain, Reina and Kinesa could have a deeper relationship. And what's more, maybe Maya doesn't know something. In a few days, it won't matter to Maya. God sat and watched the girl sleep. He realized that the expectation was not successful. Maya had turned out to be a different person. As far back as he could remember, she had been a very gentle and shy child. He worried that she was so innocent that it was enough to make her physical abilities stronger than other people. And she was the child who must return to his arms at the end of 25 years. He thought the piece that fortune had shown her was very shocking. Moreover, the thread of fate around May became very tangled, far more intricate than that of ordinary humans, especially her thread of fate intertwined with that of the Rakeen. It's safe to say he's a man who uses black magic. He wondered what would happen next. Raka. He had a headache, and he didn't realize what had happened, but he saw a woman sleeping next to him. He immediately remembered the woman pulling his hair. He wondered if he should kill her. He didn't understand how she could grab him by the hair, how she dared to do such a thing, and as if that wasn't enough, she also pushed him into the ground. He wondered what method he should use to kill her. Well, if you think about it, he didn't react in any way. Fragile neck, ready to break from one move, pale glow. She looks very vulnerable. The moment he sat in the bushes as this woman twisted his hair, he felt terribly drowsy. His body was on edge. It was a familiar feeling. After his black magic entered his body, every time he closed his eyes, he could hear a loud cry. However, there would be such silence at that moment later, and he didn't even feel any pain. The effect was the same as the flower itself. He didn't understand why it was so strange, why the man had the same effect on him as the Shakira flower itself. After touching a woman, the guy would get a huge weakness. He'd never heard of such an ability, but he hoped he was just sleepy. Then he went to check on the twins. There was a frying pan lying on the floor, which the cardinal picked up. He thought the twins were sneaking around, so the pan was lying on the floor. After the guy opened the door, Aisha attacked him with black magic. Her older brother warned her. She was to attack only after making sure it was an enemy. However, he praises her for her skills and quick response. Odinsov asked directly what happened here. The children hoped their older brother hadn't changed since Puiri himself, but Raka remembered that it was a pet devil-shaped squirrel that he had given Delcane a birthday present. He screamed, gasping, that the squirrel was dead, so he revived it with black magic. Black magic brings the dead back to life, and has many risk factors in all sorts of ways. And in every possible way he tried to hide it from the boy himself. Adults can only save a life once in their lifetime, like he himself had said earlier. He told the kids he was just hungry. The kids said that a woman rescued their older brother, and she is now in his room. Delcane said that the woman asked him to bring water and towels, but Aisha didn't want to tell the secret at first. But later she told him that it was the priestess who asked him to bring the frying pan. After all, the priestess said she had to perform a sacred ritual to save her brother. Raka thought that this pan was for the priestess to cook something, but looking at the quality of the pan, he began to suspect that the girl was just trying to poison the children. But after a little thought, he realized she was too stupid to be a killer. The couple themselves have a lot of enemies, or maybe the girl had a personal grudge. It was all strange, but he was willing to keep watching her. When Maya herself woke up, she saw that Ha's cancer was gone, and there was no one on the bed. The girl went to the mirror to make sure she was in someone else's body. And now, after everything that had happened, and I was feeling deathly hungry, and needed something to eat. She didn't know how to cook in this world. After all, she'd only been here for 2 days, and she didn't know what to eat. But when she opened the door, Araka stood in front of her. The girl immediately noticed her frying pan, which was in the guy's hands. It was shining with purity. At the first meeting, the girl decided to apologize for taking the guy by the hair, and for what happened last night. Then Raka asked if this was the end of the girl's apology. She knew perfectly well that she should have agreed with him, or say that she wanted to smack him on the head with a frying pan. But after a bit of waiting, she realized she couldn't say that. The children also woke up, who were expecting soup for breakfast again. They wanted to go home. The children were surprised that the priestess still stayed at home and didn't leave. When she heard that, she agreed to just leave, and started running out of the house. She was stopped by the Raka. He wondered if anyone else was here in the temple besides her. The girl replied that there was only one converging here. Then the guy handed her her frying pan, for she was expecting what she was going to make. He washed it because it was dirty. Come closer to the girl. He quietly tells her he's sorry if she wanted the kids to die of food poisoning, but this time he'll pretend he doesn't know anything. But next time, she better be prepared for the consequences. Raka also showed the corner where the girl could go to make breakfast. There were only 3 ingredients. Mine realized that if she cooked something the kids would like, then she'd probably be forgiven. She had to figure something out. After all, she had 6 years of experience working alone. She suddenly had an idea, and she decided to settle on one. She put some chopped vegetables on the table for the children. Maya suggested we try this dish. After all, it's an unusual vegetable that will taste very different. And the children had to like it. After all, she had never seen anyone in her life who didn't like deep-fried potatoes. The boy decided to try it first. He was stopped by his older brother as well, who decided to try it first. After all, it would be better than hurting children first. After the first sample of potatoes, he said it was quite good. I myself thought that fried potatoes were the most popular dish. The kids really liked it. They ate it with gusto. Suddenly, Aisha, with bright eyes, rose from her chair and suggested that the priestess should go to work in their house. After all, Aisha wants to hire her. Raka interrupted the children and suggested that the living priestess come out for one conversation. Already behind the house, the guy asked if she sprinkled anything in that food, or did something wrong with it. She immediately explained that she hadn't done anything. The older brother was surprised because our sister Aisha never recognizes people around her. If she doesn't put anything up, then Aisha would never suggest such a thing. So it was very suspicious to him. Raka told the girl that she will go with him to the castle, and it was out of the question. Only Mine asked her to wait. She couldn't get involved with the protagonist of the novel even if it's himself. After all, she doesn't know when he'll kill her, and she couldn't tell him that directly. Only the girl wanted to somehow get out of this situation that she missed home. She's got kids to look after. She also has a husband who's very jealous. The boy remarked that saintly girls can't marry. The priestess replied that she was not a saint. Then the boy remarked that only holy men wear white robes. Maya explained that these clothes are just comfortable, and she likes them. Still, the guy believed it. Then he decided to ask where the priestess's husband was, and where her youngest was. She explained that her home was closer to the north, about an hour's walk, and she realized that an hour's walk was too long, so it was unlikely the cardinal would check the place. As far as the guy knew, there was only one town north of here. Then the girl explained that she meant west, and to the west are mountains too. He replied that the only settlement from here in terms of walking is in the east. Then the girl explained that indeed she lives in the east. Then the guy replied that it was actually south. She realized she had just failed completely, and what she said was a lie. In order for Raka to start trusting her, she decided to give her name Shiyu just the power of a god. Though her name is not such a serious bargaining choice, she had no choice. Well, if she gave her full name, her real name, she'd reveal that she's a saint. That's why she called herself Mimir. About her last name, she really didn't know what her last name was, because Maya's personal life was never revealed in the novel. Of course she doesn't know. After all, Maya is just a minor character to the main character Emperor. If she were to die one day, no one would be in her body. Just an extra. Perhaps she would have been happy to be born with a different fate. At least she wouldn't have died the way she should have. Raka seems to be telling the truth about not knowing her parents. The girl, of course, wondered how the guy knew she wasn't lying, and began to suspect that there's something in magic that's like a lie detector. And Nipples began to think about how she would learn black magic and be able to make a lot of money. The guy's aura colored black. He saw something strange in the girl's eyes, and asked about them. He had seen that somewhere before. He'd seen that look somewhere before. Raka asked, how did the priestess get close to the twins? The girl replied that there was always a way. Then the boy suggested that she would be a good nanny for the twins, because after a day on which he could put an owl had quit. After all, he's never seen anyone handle twins so well. He doesn't really trust her yet. Besides, Aisha said she wanted to hire her, so he's going to ask Shiroma to keep an eye on her while she works. That's a good idea. Of course, the girl in the couple is in favor of the invitation, but she declined. She can't go to the castle. She thinks she should stay here. If she goes there, she'll surely die. Then the guy noticed that the salary of the nannies who looked after the twins was 500 kirks, but the girl wasn't surprised. Then the guy started listing 700,800,900, and after the last digit of 900 coins. I thought about finding the money she could buy everything she needed and move to the other side. But after the final figure of 1,000 coins, and she said yes. She's already mentioned that on 6,000 kirks you can live comfortably for a lifetime. It's only 6 months, maybe this is her chance. Maybe she can work as a nanny and keep Raka and the protagonist from meeting, and then the Emperor won't use his powers and can survive. Mine only agreed on the condition that the guy didn't kill her. When he asked why he had to kill her, she said that her life was actually in danger, and she was in danger. That's him and the Emperor. Especially he in the novel was the one who killed anyone who got in his way. Raka began to suspect that the priestess was going to kill the twins because they were threatening her. Then the girl replied that he was personally mistaken. He realized, of course, that survival was of the essence, but that wasn't the point. For some reason, Maya felt like the worst person in the world. Suddenly, the children burst into the room. They wondered why two adults were talking alone for so long. I beamed in surprise and got closer to the guy, which made for an uncomfortable scene. Even the guy himself tripped and fell on top of the girl, pinned her right to the floor. The kids were just shocked at what they had just seen. They had already begun to ponder and consider the fact that the girl would become their relative. After the kids argued, they were distracted by mine. After all, Herzog himself had just fallen asleep, but they kept arguing. Suddenly, Herzog woke up after the girl called his name. The girl felt as if the guy was mesmerized. She apologized for saying the name because he could not react in any way. Well, the boys had to stop the two of them fighting anyway before someone got hurt. "All kids grow up fighting," replied the Duke. Asha began to use her magic since her brother had torn her hair out. Well, Herzog didn't even care that his little sister was using black magic. He kept looking at the priestess. The magic flew straight at the Duke, but he was able to fend it off. Aisha was warned by her older brother that she would be punished for using black magic, and he warned that magic could only be used if you were dealing with a stranger who was threatening your life. Nosha was against Herzog marrying a priestess. Maya realized that this situation, her experience at the unknown year of the novel, spoke for itself. This situation with the black magician could be decisive. So he asked her to wait because he was ready to explain everything. But the guy was sure she did something to him to get him into the story. Maya knew something was wrong here, but somehow things had only stopped getting worse, not the other way round. Now it was necessary to talk. The frequency was hertz. The kids were gone so they could talk. The girl realized that the Raka wasn't doing all this because she wanted to. She didn't know if she had the ability to handle his power. The extras never had such powers. The girl wanted to say directly to her husband that he himself had lost his mind. Mine didn't understand why he was looking at him so fearfully. She little but suspected that her husband was worth pretending that she hadn't seen anything. So she suggested that he pretend that nothing had happened at all. If the girl won't tell anyone what happened here, he'll go back to the castle to find out what happened, and he'll get to the bottom of her identity. Moi didn't know what she should do. If he found out who she was, she'd send him to the temple. The guy got close to the girl and asked her if she knew what it all meant. She said yes, which means if she doesn't tell him who's who now, he'll find out later anyway. This means that many people in the castle will know who she is. If she tells now, only he will know. If she sticks her neck out, someone's bound to find out about her. She'll be killed or killed. The girl realized that if she was returned to the temple, her efforts were in vain. Her escape from her babysitting job, if things get complicated now, she'll be killed. Of course, Herzog himself didn't want her to die. No one could handle the twins the way she did. No one would want to handle them. So the girl suggested that she start by being a nanny for the twins. Only Hertz wanted to think that they had already decided everything, and the girl was officially hired as a nanny. She offered to sign the document. After all, I think the Hertzes think she's a bad person. I apologized, because he let it slip out of my mind. He also apologized for being obsessed with one thought and bringing it to this. After all, he lacks patience. He thinks she won't hurt him, so there's no point in revealing her identity soon. He'll gradually get to know her by keeping her around, so she shouldn't even think about quitting her babysitting job. A friend's younger brother dropped by, who brought some weed for the Duke. When the girl asked what it was, Herzog said she didn't need to know. Then Sue's little brother replied that it was Shakira's flower. A little later, the Duke asked why she didn't want to go anywhere outside. The priestess replied that even if she had a reason, he would drag her with him. Herzog was ready to dry all the girl's reasons, for he was ready to leave her alone and she would tell all. My answer was that her clothes were torn in some places, so she couldn't go out like that. Second, homosexuality. That means she doesn't like going out. Now that she's told me everything, he can go out alone. Younger brother noticed that the Duke was very good at keeping his word, and yet to leave this girl here after he had personally listened to her. The only savior in this drained world is the Duke's younger brother. Keeping a promise is the cardinal rule. After all, Herzog gave in to his little brother and said he'd be back soon. Before he left, he warned her that if she ran away while he was away, she should realize the consequences of her deeds. Already in private, the younger brother gave tea and priestess. She herself did not understand how the boy and his older brother had such different characters. A little boy has noticed that his older brother is not very good at expressing emotions, and he's pretty sure his sister-in-law likes his brother. The girl herself didn't know if she should explain the misunderstanding, but she decided to explain that there was nothing between her and the Duke. But the boy didn't want to believe it. After all, judging by her red face, you could tell she had feelings for her brother too. Even if it's a little harsh, he still likes her. He's never seen to look back at someone like that. Now the girl realized perhaps the most difficult person she had to deal with was the Duke's younger brother. The Duke himself went into the woods. He realized the problem was the lack of Shakira's flower. He had never seen such a thing before. The flower belonged to the Imperial family, so he had no choice but to get it in secret, or he would be in trouble. He needed to take another look around. Suddenly, Herzog saw the Imperial Knights. After hearing the dialogue, the Duke understood what was initially strange because it was very quiet. It looked like the Emperor had something planned with the temple. Also, the guys were discussing that there were no flowers around, just like the priest said. The guy himself preferred to be weird if bringing good news at a time like this could be rewarded. Now the Duke realized what had happened. He had to think hard about what he had just heard. Firstly, the Emperor arrived at the temple to perform the blessing ceremony, but it had to be suspended due to unforeseen circumstances. Secondly, the location of the flowers has nothing to do with the Imperial family. Thirdly, there are currently no flowers here. Then it's the woman he really wanted. Maya is a woman with powers that are like a flower. Just in case, he wanted to stop her from taking the nanny job, but it all worked out. But now there's another question. Why he feels so good with her? After all, the feeling next to her is like the effect of a flower. He feels like he's losing all his energy. His mind and body losing control, wanting only to be near her. Perhaps the contact is a kind of mediation. Speaking of touch, Naum, one person immediately comes to mind. Reina, yes, who can put you to sleep with just one touch. A woman he was able to find after a long investigation. But Maya is different from this girl, who he knows no matter what happens, he can't let her go. What he needs to do now is buy her some clothes. She seemed pretty upset that her dress ripped. When the Duke returned home, he saw the girl lying asleep. He couldn't believe he needed this woman without even knowing her real identity. The Duke's younger brother arrived. The first thing the older brother asked was if the priestess had done anything strange or suspicious in his absence. The boy answered in the negative. She had been asleep the whole time. The boy suddenly wondered why the door had closed. He realized that his brother loved this woman after all. Also, the Duke informed that tomorrow he was going to be in the first half of the day. Then the younger brother decided to go to sleep after all. Already at the door, he was rejoicing. After all, he had read books like this at the beginning of the relationship. Lovers should be left alone. So he wished his older brother a good time. Maya woke up in the night. She was surprised at what time it was. She had been asleep for a long time, but someone had covered her with a blanket. Then Herzog turned to the girl. To her question if someone is here in the room, he answered already in the negative. Herzog told about the knights he met in the forest. They came here through the forest. And now the Duke thinks that they are definitely looking for something to begin with. It was necessary not to leave the room. He also warned her that she had taken a frying pan as protection just in case. Herzog left the room. The sound of the door opening was audible. A knight knocked on the door. He greeted the young master. He apologized for disturbing him so early. The knight had only one question, if the Duke had seen the blonde with blue eyes. Maya immediately realized it was about her. The Duke replied that he had never seen such a girl. Then the knights confirmed that they wanted to check it personally. They also showed the Emperor's permission, and yet they went inside. Maya realized she mustn't make any mistakes. One punch and it was over. The knights decided to go into one of the rooms. There were twins sitting inside, who were wild. Maya in turn decided to cover herself with a blanket before hiding. When the twins got grabbed, mine decided to help. I hit this guy over the head with a frying pan. The twins were immediately surprised at how much the priestess was good for. Then Herzog came closer to her and told her they were leaving, until the knights woke up. Already inside the carriage. The twins were shocked at how skillfully the girl used the frying pan, and they had no idea she was capable of such a thing. They praised her. The priestess explained that this was the first time she had ever had such a thing. At one point, the Duke asked the girl directly why the Imperial Knights were looking for her. They said they were looking for a blonde girl with blue eyes. And Maya explained that it was just a coincidence. The twins began to share the nanny. The first thing Aisha started to say was that the priestess belonged to her because the little girl herself had first offered to be her nanny. Maya thought that Raka was a vivid representative of a possessed person, but it turns out he wasn't the only one. Herzog in turn asked his younger sister to calm down. Also, Herzog said that the girl should look at the enemy and then act. Technically, only he can hire people. But Aisha stood her ground because she was the one who invited the priestess as a nanny. Already inside the castle, Herzog realized that the man the Imperial family itself was looking for. Interesting indeed. It must be because of her abilities, similar to the effect of the flower. And the best place to start was with a contract. He couldn't lose her, especially now that all the flowers had wilted. Rocky's assistant ran into the room. The first thing he did was to apologize for being late, and then Rocky noticed that in his absence the assistant had relaxed a lot. But the assistant was trying to do the right thing. Then the Duke allowed us to get to the point. He asked his assistant directly if there was any news related to the Imperial family. The boy answered in the negative. But since yesterday, there's a rumor that a god's daughter has appeared in the temple. I believe her name is Maya. Then Herzog inquired what her abilities were in this girl. Unfortunately, the assistant could not give an answer to that. After all, he was not privy to such information. But it seemed that an investigation would have to be made to find out. Then Herzog left it all to his assistant. And he should also find out about the woman he brought in today. Just a secret from everyone. And the Duke also asked me to tell this woman to come into his office now. I'm all set to sign the contract, but I almost forgot an important detail. The salary will be 500 coins more than the 1,500 he promised. But it's also a condition that she has to sleep with him every night. Maya looked at it and was shocked by the mountain of money. She realized that if Herzog had realized who she really was, he would hardly have thrown such money around. Then Maya wondered why Hertz had decided to give her such a salary. He asked her to read all the terms and conditions to the end. Then she saw the last clause, and asked what it meant. It took Maya until the end to realize the point of the last paragraph. After all, she had been hired as a nanny, but not for the Duke himself. Then tell him directly and tell him he wants the girl. Maya was really worried about why the Duke would need her at night, because now she couldn't even think about it. Only the Duke would ask for paper or something to finish the last paragraph. At night, they'll just hold hands. The girl realized that holding hands would eventually turn into hugs and kisses. And in the end, it all goes to the same conclusion. Maya tried to change the Duke's mind. But she also doesn't sleep while snoring and grinding her teeth. She also drools in her sleep. Herzog only remarked that it was all serious. Then Maya asked him to rewrite the last paragraph. If he thought it was serious, Herzog explained that he needed the ability that the girl was hiding, with which she can immobilize an opponent. The man at that moment relaxes and falls asleep. The girl agreed, but she also had a condition. If he breaks the rules of just holding hands, then this clause is automatically cancelled. Herzog promised that there would be no contact between them other than holding hands. So she shouldn't worry. The girl also asked for one more condition, that the Duke himself hide her, and under no circumstances to send her back to the temple. She needs to make herself as safe as possible. Then the guy signed. The girl signed her real name, Maya, which shocked the Duke. He realized it was the girl from the Temple of God. Since Maya realized she'd exposed herself, and she decided to run out of the office as fast as she could before the Hercules thought of it. Might be lucky. She'd have to worry about the Duke finding out her true identity. Her ability had worked on the Duke herself. At the time, she didn't understand why she was perfectly fine. Seems to be an ability, completely different from the blessing effect. For example, she doesn't use her ability, she just passes it on. But it also raised another question. Why would the Duke need this ability? Suddenly a voice was heard, and it was the twins calling Maya to go out. Maya went down to the boys and asked them what they were doing. The older brother explained that Aisha said she didn't want to train and ran away. Maya understood them perfectly. When she was younger and didn't want to go to school, she purposely chose to go into debt. And there's nothing wrong with that. After Aisha heard that there was nothing wrong with skipping school, her eyes sparkled and she noticed that well and truly she was growing to like her. She didn't expect that a little girl could be a good judge of character. A question arose between the refugees. Who is more in love with Aisha or Delcane? In fact, both of them were not to her liking, but the younger brother convinced his sister and warned her not to ask such questions. The deceiver was sure the priest liked him better. In an instant, Aisha grabbed the priestess's hand. After that, her ability worked on the little girl. Aisha asked the girl directly what she had just done to her. The brother asked his sister what had happened. Aisha explained that the priestess had done something strange to her. She felt faint and her heart began to pound. She also smelled a pleasant odor. It was such a pleasant sensation that she thought she was crazy. Maya now understood what Herzog felt. She had unknowingly used this ability on the youngest girl. She got curious how it happened, so she asked the little girl to take her hand again, but she didn't want to. The boy seems to be all right. The boy took her hand, and he was fine. The ability only worked on Duke and Aisha. Maya realized she was ruining the twins' relationship, so she asked the boy to come closer. She explained that she was his sister. She's telling the truth, because that's what happened with the Duke. When he hugged her, if she said that, it would only make things worse. Then she pointed out that Aisha wasn't the type to scold. Even her brother pointed out that that's true. All the same, the twins decided to make up the point with the priestess to go for a walk. The twins had also discussed for some time that the priestess should marry their older brother, but Aisha didn't want to believe it. But in turn, the brother was only a shiv and didn't want to lose a bride like Maya. To distract the children, Maya asked that Aisha show her around the mansion. After all, she would love to see it. Before the tour, and Aisha asked Maya to hold her hand. Maya immediately realized that it looked like her ability here was her own. So on Aisha and made that there would be no consequences after using this ability. After I grabbed her finger, and it's going to feel a lot weaker than the last time. Maybe there's a contact that's not as close. Her point is not as strong. Aisha then asked if she could call Maya Ani. Already in the room, Maya realized that the mansion was very large. It would take a little longer to get back. It's a good thing the twins get along with her. They're a little crazy, but still. The salary she was promised. It's too much and 6,000 is enough, so she'll work for 4 months and leave. Suddenly the girl heard a sound from under the bed. There was clearly someone there, but her gaze was interrupted by a knight who ran into the room. Who heard the sounds? When there was a raccoon under the bed, and it turned out to be a god. This time he wanted to be a cute creature himself, so he turned into a raccoon. He came here to tell her about her ability. The most important thing he wanted to tell her. Lately she's been dealing with strange feelings. He's going to explain everything. It was because she didn't give her blessing. Her ability is an enhanced version of his version of the power of the Shakira flower. Flower, in moderate quantities, it acts as a sedative. In excess, it has a stimulating effect. Simply put, it acts on others as it would if someone drank a spell potion. It's because of what she's caught awake with her power. And her power only comes out when she's in contact with someone. Because they had to split up quickly. But he came as soon as he found out she'd arranged to spend the night with the Duke. If she wants to get rid of her ability, she can give the blessing, then it will stop. That there is a holy relic akin to his aura. In fact, they can be blocked with the relic's ability. Only the girl was glad that the raccoon with could bring a holy relic. He told her that holy items were not created for such a purpose. But since he was now guilty of this, he would give her something. In return, if she would let him use the relic, she would have to help him a little. He would bring it to her soon, but now he would go. Only the girl stopped him before he decided to leave. Because she had been using her ability to fly like that forever, that was the question she was most interested in. Then the god replied that this problem could only arise when she gave blessings. The girl also asked if her ability might not work on a normal person. God pointed out that it usually doesn't work on ordinary people because the Shakira flower only works on those who have special powers. For example, superpowers like holy or magical powers. So nothing worked on our brother. He doesn't have any powers, but he has black magic. Now the girl realized that the ability to act only on contact, and it's like a stimulant or a driving potion. Now she realized the difference between the protagonist and the secondary character, because the main character can make a person fall asleep. But she can't control her powers at all. She was so happy to earn 6,000 coins, but now she only feels frustrated. She was tired, so she decided to sleep because physically and mentally she couldn't take it anymore. All this regret won't change anything. For something to change, you have to act. And she will try to change something, then just think about why and all this. It's going to be okay, and she can handle it. And so she promised herself that tomorrow she would spend the night with the Duke, and she'd have to think of something as soon as possible. Suddenly, the maid woke the girl up. Her name is Rita. She works in the East Wing. She came on the Duke's orders because the Duke had called for Maya. It was already midnight. According to her contract, she starts work tomorrow, or she was to start work at 12 p.m. Maya asked the maid to tell the Duke she was still asleep, but the maid will do it because the Duke's orders are more important than anything else. Maya realized that she had no choice but to face the problem head-on. Since she was called, she had to go as soon as possible. First, she was offered a change of clothes. Rita thought the Duke was calling her for a reason other than just to talk. The Duke opened the girl's door and motioned for her to come inside. She herself did not know what to do and thought the problem much more serious. In moderate quantities, the ability acts as a sedative, but in excess, it has a stimulating effect. And until a god brings a sacred relic, one should try to avoid contact as much as possible. Duke asked if there were any problems, to which he received a negative reply. But if so, he suggested she take off her dressing gown and lie down next to him. She was obviously hot. Maya didn't want him to see her dressed like that. She told him no touching, and she came dressed like she was hinting at something else. Sometime after the guys were looking at each other, the hero asked her if the girl was crying under that dressing gown. And judging by the way she had done earlier, that was a possibility. He didn't know why she had decided to run away from the temple. But if he had been in her situation, he would have tried to hide it too. Now Maya realized that the Duke was backing her. Maybe he's not so bad after all. After the girl relaxed, the Duke invited her to lie down beside her. She of course realized that she had to make the most of her contact with him. Then she asked him if they had to sleep together tonight. She needs time, so she asked for 2 days. I'm sure in those 2 days God will bring her the relics. The contract was that if Party B breached the agreement, it should compensate a multiple of 3 times what Party A paid. The girl was delivered against the wall. When she tried to escape, Herzog explained that he needed her now. Up close, the girl saw that he looked much more tired. Then suddenly Hertz lighted her hand, felt her ability. Then she pushed him. And he realized that the more touch, the harder it was to control his mind. But he thought they could at least hold each other's hands. So he let her come back to him. Already in the corridor, the girl felt unwell. Then she did not know why she had to stay in the Duke's room. But she began to suspect that the Duke, like the Emperor himself, would not sleep without the flower. If she had known that everything would turn out this way, she would have read the book more carefully. Herzog himself couldn't believe that everything had happened in a second. After he had just touched her palm, it was unbelievable to him. But he realized something for himself. The emotion he feels for the girl. It's desire. He didn't feel it at first, but he seems to have lost his mind because he can't sleep properly. Suddenly Aisha came into his room, who just couldn't sleep at night. Herzog realized that the girl probably couldn't sleep because she used black magic. That's why he was against her learning to use black magic. He didn't want her to suffer in any way because of black magic. The use of black magic. As the body weakens, black magic will dissipate. This leads to an increase in anxiety and fear. So he once again warned his sister not to use any more magic. He didn't want either of the twins to be unhappy. But he couldn't leave the cruel methods of the Duke and Duchess's upbringing. No one should see any weakness in the black magic ability inherent in the family, and now it has become them to kill what they hold most dear. And for that, and the ability to hurt nothing. So as soon as Herzog became of age, he used forbidden black magic to annoy the Duke and Duchess. If he had learnt earlier about the disadvantages of black magic, he would not have made these children suffer. Aisha asked why her older brother was so serious. Doesn't he like her to be like him? He pointed out that after all, she would never give in to anyone's stubbornness, but he decided to put her on the bed and ordered her to close her eyes. Her headache stopped abruptly. The next morning, Maya felt great. After all, nothing could be better than having a cup of tea in the morning. Suddenly, she was informed by the maid that Aisha had disappeared somewhere. The maid was passing the room and did not see her and wondered if the maid had told the Duke. But she could not tell him. That Miss had disappeared before etiquette class, and the little girl also always disappears before etiquette class. Aisha suddenly appeared, who immediately started harassing May. The girl was aware that last night she still came to her older brother's room, so she was only interested in one question, whether the nanny had slept with her brother. But that got a negative answer, but Aisha didn't want to believe it. Suddenly, the Duke's assistant came into the room and told the little girl that her lesson was about to start. After the little girl left for class, the assistant decided to introduce himself to the nanny. The aide took the girl into another room and informed her that when the young master and miss were in class, she could either go to rest or go with them. She would make sure that they didn't miss any lessons, and she would make sure that nothing bad happened to them. Because whatever it is, because he's attracted to her, he thinks she's going to make it. The aide also decided to take the girl to the young master's room. The twin children's rooms are on the west annex. When the boys came to the rooms, a woman came out of it. It was the Countess. Maya was the first to correct the Countess, but she didn't care. The Countess also called the girl a slave. Then the assistant corrected her and said that a nanny cannot be a slave. Photos to ask then where the girl herself comes from. Of course, the assistant to him will answer that question, because Hertz and the only one who knows who she is. The Countess had also heard that the girl had recently been bought out of the bean market at the Duke's mansion. Vitka might be another reason why she agreed to be a nanny. I only dare to bitch this, saw the Countess. The girl apologized, for it was amusing to watch the Countess puzzle over where she herself had come from. Just wanted to close and hit the girl. She was stopped by the twins, who immediately saw that the woman just wanted to hit their babysitter. The Countess immediately tried to argue that she just wanted to say hello to the girl and wish her the best. Gertz appeared and was interested in one question: who wanted to hit whom? Hertz heard the Countess trying to hit someone. Of course, the coffee shop tried to argue that it wasn't just a misunderstanding. She would never lay a finger on anyone in her life, and there was no thought of harming her. Of course, the Countess said she scolded the twins a little today. In class, so they must be busy, and they were trying to scold her in some way. After all, today's tardiness presentation is what she scolded them about. Maya realized that the twins wanted to stand up for her, but ended up taking all the damage. She couldn't just let it go. So I told the Duke directly that the Countess just wanted to hit her, and they just bumped into each other by accident. And she also called her a slave. That's what the aide himself picked up on. Telkane suggested just killing the woman. After all, she had insulted her sister-in-law and called the twins liars. And even the Duke realized that because these actions were directed at members of the family, it meant that the Countess had infringed on the Duke himself. She must be punished. Maya was the only one who didn't want anything to happen to the Countess. But she couldn't back down. After all, who knows how far the Duke was going to go? She had no desire to watch someone turn into powder before her eyes. Then the Raka decided to just blow up the woman. He was mad. And the girl touched him. The Duke explained that he couldn't let anyone touch his man. Especially her. Now the girl realized that the more she touched him, the more he reacted. The Raka realized after all. It took him a while to realize, but he wanted to make sure that she was asking him not to kill her because she was worried about him. If that's the case, it's good he won't kill her. A little later, the Duke suggested we go out to eat. All the boys sat down at the table together. During dinner, Aisha noticed that she and the priestess slept together in the same bed. When the Raka asked if this was true, Maya said it was true. Suddenly, Maya announced that she was a little tired, so she would eat and go rest. Also, Aisha started shoveling food into herself and then announced that she was full. Maya was surprised. Aisha had just wiped herself with a napkin. Aisha replied that she didn't want to make others uncomfortable. The priestess then remarked that the little girl is a lithe little girl. There is no other child as intelligent and good as her. It was a ploy to get the little girl to start eating vegetables. Raka ordered the girl herself to drink the medicine he would bring her. If she's that tired, And he will do so because he didn't hear that she slept with Aisha. Then the little girl was just shocked. Why was her older brother sleeping with her? Then the older brother asked the younger sister who had told her that. Then the little girl explained that she had gone and found out for herself. Then the Duke replied that she mustn't explain anyway. She must sleep with him. Because it was her duty. Maya realized that the situation only seemed to be getting better. It's after lunch. Maya asked the Duke where he was going. He asked what was wrong because he was just going to the office. Maya wondered why the older brother wouldn't comfort his little sister. Duke told me that last night he was awake again and without the girl herself he can't sleep. After that day, when he passed out, he can't sleep. And thanks to Aisha, the Duke's family uses black magic. But in return for this power, when they close their eyes, they hear the voices of the dead. In the Empire, people try to avoid black magic because it contains forbidden spells. If you use it once, you can hear the dead. So now he doesn't know if he can last 2 days. Then Maya came up with an idea and suggested we put him to bed. She knows that he was upset yesterday because he was very tired of her leaving, so she decided to ask him if he would mind if she helped him today. Already in the room, the girl wondered how often the Duke used the Shakira flower. He explained that once every 2 or 3 days, because it's hard to find. Maya wanted to take a chair to help Duke sleep. He suggested she get into bed, but she said she didn't want to do that. Then Herzog ordered it, and he had no other choice. Maya sat down in the chair anyway, and declared that since she'd slept well all night, she'd had a good night's sleep. And now she would sit and watch the Duke sleep. Then Herzog didn't understand how he could sleep soundly when people were looking at him. Thought the whole situation. The girl realized that if she could sleep now, he wouldn't call her tonight. Raka asked to wait as he wanted to change his clothes, and let her wait in the room. The girl realized that when Herzog came back, she would have to open the window naturally. When Herzog came back, the girl wanted to open the window because it was hot. The Duke was surprised that he could just close his eyes and relax next to her. He had not been able to do that for a long time and had not thought he would be able to sleep. Maya had never seen him like that, so she didn't know what to say. But the important thing was that she had an ability that would help the Duke. And Aisha said she felt fine when it only touched her fingers. Maybe on Duke too with the work. The Duke sat down on the bed, then the girl offered to touch his finger. When the boys touched, Raka closed his eyes and started feeling a wonderful feeling. When you can be serene with your eyes closed under the rays of the sun. Thanks to the girl. He wouldn't have been able to feel this good if it wasn't for her. The girl remembered the contract and decided to suddenly go to close the window. She realized that she had to control herself, and it was better not to interfere with the affairs of the protagonists. It never ends well. On contact, Hertz appears to be a gentle lamb, but in reality he's evil. Evil that wouldn't even blink an eye to kill someone. The main characters are purposely given good looks. However, don't depend on it. She shouldn't feel anything towards the Duke. Maya asked Duke if he had felt good the last time she had touched him. He confirmed it. Thanks to that, he was able to keep his cool. So they decided to do the same this time. Everything the girl did while the Raka closed his eyes was looking only at him. He could feel it very well. A little later, the girl fell asleep as well and woke up to the fact that she was wearing Herzog himself. She realized that she seemed to have touched him in her dream, and she couldn't go back to sleep. Maya asked Herzog to get away from her, but he wouldn't listen to such nonsense. She knew it was her own fault for starting this dialogue here. While the Duke was distracted, the girl decided to hit him with a pillow, but it didn't work. But he just managed to come to his senses. The Duke also asked her to do the same next time if you do something like that. He will let her fool him as well because it seems to be the only way he can come to his senses. The girl also asked what time it was. He asked her if she was going to go out for dinner at 7 p.m., but Maya answered in the negative. Then the guy's head started spinning, and he said he didn't get enough sleep, so he suggested that the girl go to bed and sleep some more. Well, since it was already evening, they had to follow the contract. It's after bedtime. Rita brought biscuits for Nanny. They're sweet and delicious, especially for the nanny. It was the Duke who asked for these biscuits. All the time he lived with the young master and mistress. Then he asked the maid to make biscuits for the nanny herself, so she thought it was pure love. They call it a chocolate chip biscuit, but the maid called it a biscuit made out of love. The aide called the Duke. The guy himself didn't understand what had happened, because he had disappeared at midday and now he suddenly reappeared. Accidentally, the Duke called the nanny something he didn't want to do out loud. Because of this, he got angry. The aide was able to put together a report on the girl. Maya came from Libertana. The oracle said that a blue-eyed child born in the city would be called God's daughter. And following the oracle's instructions, she was taken from the temple and raised as God's daughter. It's a backwoods town on the edge of the empire, a place where crime thrives, and it would never be surprising if a child went missing. And after she got into the temple again, the oracle descended again is all that was learnt. The Duke realized she was hiding her identity because the oracle had dubbed her the daughter of God. The emperor's power is unstable. If this becomes public knowledge, the emperor's position will be weakened. He will lose the support of the data. And he also remembered that he always wanted to go somewhere else. It's like her life is in danger. The guys have also been trying to find out why she ran away, but so far there's no clue. It might be better to ask her directly. Surely the deputy could befriend her and then ask her directly. But Herzog didn't want to waste time on that. He wanted to find out everything about everything. By himself. The Duke's younger brother met the nanny and asked her if she had a good rest last night. She answered in the affirmative, all thanks to the boy who had listened attentively to the history lesson. But he wasn't interested, he replied. Nevertheless, it would come in handy for him later. The brother also told me about his sister, that she's not paying attention in class, and that she didn't come to class today. So he had to be alone in class. Maya decided to reassure Aish somehow, so she asked her brother Anna is now. But the boy's answer was wishful thinking, which he then voiced. It was suspicious, but the girl didn't show it. His sister loves flowers, all flowers. Then Maya asked if there was a place around the neighborhood where she could pick flowers in peace. The boy decided to take her there and show her around. The boys came to a big garden, in which there were many different colors. This place was given to her by Hertz. It was her birthday because she loved flowers so much. And also Hertzen punished Aisha for using black magic, so he forbade her to come to this one. And she probably can't wait to get here. So the girl thought the boy knew what her favorite flower was, but here were all the flowers she liked. Without a moment's thought, Maya gathered bouquets of flowers. When she wanted to show it to the boy, suddenly disappeared. Maya knew perfectly well that he wasn't the type to just walk away. She began to blame herself for the children. She should have looked more closely. Only the girl wanted to run to Hertz to tell him that his brother was missing me tomorrow. The boy showed up. The boy explained that he wanted to scare the nanny a little, and also whether he'd picked her wreath of flowers. He tried very hard, but it doesn't look very neat. But to Nanny he looked stunning, and the boy's soul is much more beautiful than the wreath. The boy was glad she liked the wreath too. Now Maya couldn't believe her eyes. That such a handsome and sweet boy could get into such a mess. She also couldn't believe that he was bullying the main character. But also she had forgotten the whole story about the boy. A little later, the boys knocked on Aisha's room. The nanny immediately told them that she had a bouquet of flowers for the girl. And after hearing that, she opened the door immediately. And she was surprised. The little girl even started crying from the bouquet of flowers, because she liked it very much. She was ashamed that she ignored her nanny. And the nanny in turn brought her a bunch of flowers. Already inside the room, she also said that she felt lonely and locked in the room. After hearing this, May remembered that something similar had happened in the novel. As punishment for persecuting the heroine, the twins were dragged into the tower forever. Reading the novel, she didn't give it a second thought. She thought something who committed a crime should be punished for it. It was true that the twins bullied the protagonist. But at the same time, she couldn't believe that these kids could do something like this. So she doesn't know what the future holds, but now. A little later, the guys decided to go out to dinner. Already, while they were on their way to the room, the twins started arguing. Or to resolve the situation, Maya decided to praise them. The twins didn't know what praise was, then Maya offered them an option. She would give them a seal of praise if she traveled something good. If they collected 10 pieces, she would spoil one of their wishes. They immediately realized it was very cool. A maid knocked on the door. She decided to deliver the Duke's message, that he would be dining with the lady and gentleman, and her too. The girl realized that this was a good thing, because when they are together and eating, she can eat something delicious. But she doesn't want to see them fight again. And the Duke also said that the nanny would eat with them. Maya informed the children that they would be having dinner with the Duke tonight. Aisha, of course, was not happy about the news. After all, she had been fighting with her brother. A little later, Mine decided to speak to the Duke in person, about how Aisha said she didn't want to eat with Yagursky either. I think she's still angry with him. But it's a start that she still hasn't thought through her behavior. If she doesn't want to eat, let her not eat. She'll come when she's hungry. Hearing that the girl wasn't going to eat anyway, because just a minute ago she was shouting that she wouldn't go. The Duke was angry because it's impossible not to eat just because a person is upset. He should have gone to deal with her personally. That's when Maya realized what she had done and grabbed Duke's arm to calm him down. Then the man began to lose his temper. At first he was losing his mind as soon as she fucked for him. But now he was better. He couldn't seem to hold back in his heart. Suddenly he changed his face. He pulled the girl closer to him. An assistant also showed up. Mazi had no choice but to step on the Duke's foot. But she couldn't do that, so he led her on. Suddenly, the younger sister also showed up. She didn't think her brother had a problem, so she can't come to her. But he's also picking on the nanny. Aisha tried to take the babysitter away from her brother. Aisha even started to use black magic. But the nanny was able to calm her down with her praise. Already inside the Duke's office, Maya never fully understood why they weren't having dinner together just to sort out their relationship. That's when she decided to make up with the guys. And she didn't want to see a sadistic child who is much more spoiled than she is now. The girl realized that it seems the only time Maya spends with the twins is during meals, but it ends up being Sora every time. She began to think of a way to measure them. Suddenly, she remembered that fathers have no classes tomorrow, so she asked the Rocky if he would have free time tomorrow, to which the man replied that if needed, he could spare time. Then Maya replied that they would all go on a picnic together tomorrow. Aisha was surprised because she didn't know what it was, so she asked the girl. Maya answered that it was when people take food with them to the countryside, admire the scenery and have a good time, and they could probably watch it too. The Duke similarly agreed. The Duke knew it was his fault they never went anywhere, and he didn't just take anyone anywhere. Maya realized that this atmosphere was getting much better. Then it would be their first picnic together, and she got ready to prepare the snacks. Maya offered to find out a place where they could hold it. Now she was allowed to sit down to eat together, to use the picnic as an excuse for discussion. Aisha took Maya's hand and led her to dinner. Already in the other room, Maya wondered if they could leave the Duke alone like that. The little girl replied that anyway, her brother doesn't eat when he's busy doing something and he needs to get busy choosing a picnic spot. A little later, the head hero was sitting in her room. She was so very nervous that she felt sick after eating. Suddenly, a Duke knocked on her door. He wanted to talk to her. The Duke began to smell a strong odor, the one he usually hears from her. The scent reminds him of Shakira's flower, and he seems to feel calmer from it. Well, anyway, he came here to discuss something. He was going to do that, but he thought it would be dangerous to call her late at night. He said he'd find the picnic spot himself, so he did a little research. He did some research and found out that picnics are being organized, including in his own backyard of his house. This is not a bad option, and he can work and be at the picnic at the same time. It's a fun hike. You can explore the empire with a picnic, or let's go on a picnic. Maya didn't understand what kind of books these were. The girl couldn't believe it was all the time the Duke was counting this nonsense, and he didn't seem to be eating because of it. Well, the most important thing to the Duke was that they spend time together. After these words, the girl knew that he could not be trusted to organize the picnic. Maya tried to explain that a picnic is not only a holiday, but also a learning experience. It was the first time Herzog had heard of it. If they do a picnic in the yard, it's more like a walk. So if they do a picnic in the courtyard, it's a little bit different. The Duke began to get angry at the book. After all, he didn't understand how it could contain information that only hindered him, so he decided to burn it. Of course, Maya tried to justify the book, that it wasn't meant to give Duke information, but the Duke still didn't like the author or the book. Now Duke will have to start from scratch. But the girl interrupted him and assured him that he didn't need to start from scratch. After all, he knows the Empire well. He knows some places with beautiful nature or sources of attractions, so they must go to the place he had just thought of. So-and-so. The girl was wondering if they would sleep together tonight. Her bed was too small for the two of them to sleep together, so Herzog said she would sleep on the chair. When he sat down on the chair, he asked for a hand. The Duke chose a dangerous forest after all, a source of black magic, home to all sorts of small creatures. That's why often no one goes into this mating ground. The butler hoped that it was a mistake, and the Duke hadn't chosen this as a picnic after all, to learn how to develop courage. But still the boys came to this forest. When Maya asked where they were, Herzog said that this was the place he was talking about. The kids loved it, all except the main character. Vadim's insect moment passed mine. Maya accidentally dropped the cat's food right on the Duke's head. Aisha wanted to show something interesting. I don't know if she'd be surprised if a girl showed it to her. It was a flower, and it even moved. But instead of a violent reaction, the girl only got angry and horrified by it. The girl suggested to go with her to pick a similar plant. After all, this flower had disintegrated after the blow. Aisha replied that the flower was still alive. Suddenly the boys decided to call their brother. Well, suddenly he grabbed Maya and warned her. If she wants to stay alive, she should run as fast as she can. The flower they just wanted to kill got bigger and angrier. At the same time, Herzog remembered how Maya had behaved sweetly around him. When she dropped the cats on him, she offered to wipe it off. That embarrassed him. He didn't realize what was happening to him. For some reason, his heart was beating like crazy. After all, she had only touched him. After he washed up next to the river, he decided to go back out. And little by little on the way back, he began to come to his senses. Also, Duke remembered that there were sweet fruits growing near this place somewhere, and mine seemed to like sweet fruit. So he started thinking about picking some. Well, the friend realized he's doing something he doesn't understand, and he's picking fruit for someone he has a business relationship with. Suddenly, I heard sounds. A creature that spends most of its time hibernating. But for some reason, it suddenly woke up, and the only person who is young to touch this monster is Aisha. The boy realized the twins could take care of themselves, while the priestess didn't. Suddenly, the Raku was grabbed by Maya, and together they all started running away from the plant. And because of the girl's touch, Herzog couldn't refuse. Because Maya was running very fast, she had no strength left. Hearing this, Herzog decided to deal with the plant. The Hertz used black magic in order to kill a monster. From that, the twins were just awesome then. Also, the guys all asked together if the priestess was all right. But because she was a little nervous, she started to get tired. Then Herzog asked to look in the basket, and there was something there to calm her nerves. If she's hungry. Of course, Maya didn't expect it to be empty, but the girl managed to get some fruit out of the basket. Herzog said it was a very rare fruit. That could only be found here. In order to show that the fruit is safe, the Duke decided to take one bite. Then, as the girl saw that the fruit was not poisonous, she threw a piece of it into her mouth too. Surprisingly, it was even tasty, just as I thought she liked it. I mean, it's very sweet. Then Maya wondered how Hersa could know she liked sweetness, to which the man replied that he had heard she had eaten all the biscuits and liked that flavor. She found out about her taste preference thanks to the Duke, and for some reason it makes me feel weird. A little later, when the guys were on their way back to lick the sleeping Hertz, asked the priestess if it wasn't too hard for her and the twins, to which she replied directly that it was a bit hard, but since they liked her, they were fine with it. The guy himself was happy to hear that. Then the girl asked a counter-question why he was worried about her getting tired and leaving everything empty-handed. A little later, because the girl had been running around all day, and she started to drift off to sleep, and she needed to sleep a lot. Suddenly he closed his eyes and it became very soft. She was confused, and after that she was able to fall asleep. May woke up in her room. Immediately she crawled to the table to eat some sweets. She was very tired, so she asked herself only one question: why she didn't go on a picnic on her day off, and why she had to work the next day. There's a fencing class today on the drill grounds, and for some reason it's supposed to be outside today. A maid came into the room. Seeing that Maya was about to be pancaked, she inquired about the girl. Maya replied that she didn't have the strength to get up. It seems that yesterday she was too nervous. The maid realized that if my disgraceful self held this depression inside her, it might get bigger. So the maid decided to air out the room. Just as she did so, the bad weather started at the same moment. Maya rejoiced over this news. After all, it seems God himself is on her side. This reminded her of the Tertus. He said he would bring her the sacred religion, but for some reason there is no news to him. Grief decided to remind that despite the rain, classes would continue because the fencing competition would start in a couple of days. It's a huge event that takes place every 2 years. And if it was such a huge event, Mine didn't understand why she didn't remember anything about it at the time. Perhaps it was because the event happened before Reina met the Emperor, although Maya's first blessing was also somewhat a scene from the Emperor's past. And after that, the girl was supposed to fall asleep for good after a year. This means the original story hasn't started yet. So she hoped that the story would start in a hit 3 months and 1,500 gold X4. It would be a lot more. Already outside, the twins and the girl met the Duke. He came to check on the preparations for the competition. After all, he had heard that the boys would be fighting today. Also, the twins had to fight amongst themselves. The twins came out to prepare. The Duke touched Mai's forehead. He was worried about her, but it was in vain, for she had no fever. The maid told him she wasn't feeling well, so she warned her that if anything hurt, eating or talking, she shouldn't go through it alone. Then Maya reported that her muscles were just sore. Herzog was surprised at how weak she was. There was a man who would have to train the twins. His name is Petrasha. Hertz ordered the priestess to leave, while the twins would be trained, but since he forgot his umbrella because he thought the rain would end soon, Maya suggested he go together under the same umbrella. At the same time, at the Imperial Palace, His Majesty was asked if he had seen the list of people who would be competing in the fencing competition, but he had tabloid business to attend to. The Shakira flower has disappeared, and to make matters worse, God's daughter was missing, and he didn't know where she'd gone. His Majesty has also been approached. Recently, a knight has received information about a woman who can put people to sleep. It's said that the Duke found out about it too, so it's not like this rumor isn't true. The Emperor realized that if even Herzog was looking for information about it, then it was true, and it was hardly just out loud. After all, he never does anything for nothing. More information needed more additional investigations. However, it was good news for the Emperor. Now to worry about other things. The Emperor saw the document of the twins competing in the competition. He was surprised to see that they were so young. They were already old enough to compete in the tournament. But suddenly the Emperor pointed to one name. Asked who it was the Count's eldest son. He is also a candidate for the first place. However, people call him a nutcase. Then to them the Emperor proposed that in the first round he should set him up with the young Lord Einthia. Hearing the testimony of the knight who was in the cabin, it made him wonder if it was the Duke with the twins. Well, in that one, everyone had to be on the alert anyway. Besides, as far as they knew, only a young lord couldn't use black magic. Li would like the young lord to remain forever in the shadow of his family. The swordsmanship began. The first priestess saw how strong Aisha was, and expected her little brother to lose already. Well, she took it all back. At the same moment, she asked the Duke himself what he thought about who would win. He replied that given the long run, then Aisha should win. But they only gave birth to time in vain. Well, the twins were the only thing I had going for me was how to prove myself right up front. Only Aisha thought she'd already won. Suddenly, she was smashed by her leg, and she fell to the ground, losing to her brother. But she thought she lost because of the rain, and she promised her brother that she'd be sure to dig in at the fencing tournament. Then the brother asked his sister what she would do, because the sister-in-law would not know whether she had won or not, because the sister-in-law would not go to the tournament. This information shocked her, and she immediately flew to her elder brother to ask for a daughter-in-law to see Aisha defeated. Maya seemed to realize that the tournament is a huge event. That's why the emperor can't go to the tournament. If she's seen in such a crowded place, she'll be captured immediately. A little later, already on the corridor, will be Garden Maya perfectly lifted that Aisha was very upset. She said that the tournament will be in 2 days, then tomorrow they will also train. So she got the idea to make juice to support her. In the kitchen, the cook started asking around, is the girl going to make the very juice she made at the picnic here? So they asked if the guys liked her juice. It wasn't easy. She dropped her cat right on top of the duke. One of the vapors was a delight, because in the high pool field behind the carrots there is more of an apple flavor, so Aisha must have liked it. Suddenly the guys came down to the Herza himself and asked what was going on here.